Hello, everybody, and welcome back to LRN, where we're looking at the latest news from the world of F1 from the last few days. Couple of stories coming out, so we're going to get into them, go through what we think. Obviously, need your opinion as well, so make sure to comment below and let me know your thoughts on all the latest stories coming out. Obviously, the main headline, as you can see in the thumbnail, is about Horner's comments on Lando Norris, the conversations they've had. Yes, I do know that, of course, they are just conversations at the moment, but we're going to talk a bit about what that would look like. Would it be a fantastic relationship? Would it be something that Norris should do? We'll get into that in more detail, but first of all, we're going to go through a couple of other stories which I think are quite interesting from the last couple of days. If you are new around here though, please make sure to subscribe on the bottom right hand side if you are someone who's a fan of F1. Really important. Get involved in the community, get involved in the comments. It all helps the channel out. So the first thing, though, we're going to talk about is news coming out about essentially Max Verstappen having to pay a near £1 million sum for essentially being so dominant in the World Championship. So basically, when through the year, for every point you get, you have to essentially pay a fee on top of your basic driver license fee. So there's a base payment with the license fee for the super license of £9,056, which every single driver is required to pay, and then they have to pay additional a sum on top of that for every single point gained throughout the course of the season. Now, the way that they're phrasing this in terms of the media is that the headline from one particular media outlet is Max Verstappen rocked as Red Bull star could face record high F1 bill worth close to £1 million. And that is true, that he will technically face a bill of nearly £1 million for being as dominant as he has been this year. And that basically, that actual fee, should he win both remaining races and get the fastest lap, would come to £864,000, £833. So that is going to be technically his fee for being as dominant as he's been. However, despite the headline being Red Bull star rocked by amount, first of all, he won't be paying it because essentially what will happen is, and all the drivers will have this, they'll have a clause in their contract which essentially pays them for points gained, because they of course know that this fee is coming. And of course, remember that in terms of the cost cap, the teams don't get, they're not deducted. What they pay their drivers doesn't go towards the cost cap. So by essentially putting a clause in the contract that we're going to pay you per point that you earn, it means that this amount does get paid to Verstappen, and then he pays it because it goes into his wages and therefore does not contribute to the amount that goes towards their cost cap. So it's an interesting way around the fact that obviously if they didn't have that clause in the contract, it would have to be paid by Red Bull or any other team, of course, earning points through the season, and therefore it would go towards their cost cap by as including it as a bonus. We will pay you a bonus for all the points that you earn. It essentially just says, we're going to give you the money through the season. At the end of the season, you're going to have to pay it to the FIA for your super license fee. So it's a way around it. It works for all parties, but it does show just how dominant he's been this season for him to be owing nearly £1 million. And as I say, that will be a record high sum because, of course, he has outdone all of the points hauls that Hamilton's had, and of course previous seasons with other dominant drivers like Schumacher, they didn't have anywhere near the number of races that we have now, so those sums would never be anywhere near the same, and I'm not entirely sure if the way it was calculated back then would be the same either. But to be owing nearly £1 million is just crazy. It's crazy money. But as I say, technically it will actually be Red Bull paying it because he's going to get bonus payments for all the points that he earns. So, but still, to be paying nearly £1 million is just absolutely crazy. And as I say, that will be if he wins the next two races and gets the fastest laps as well. As it stands with the points haul he has at the moment, it's a £769,777 payment, which is still enormous. So even if he DNFs in the next two races, he would owe that to renew his super license for the following year. And the other bit of news, which I think is really interesting, is coming out of Haas. So if you haven't seen it, Haas have acquired a new title sponsor, which is MoneyGram, which are going to be worth $20 million a season for Haas, which is absolutely massive for them. And basically what they're saying is this will allow them for the first time. Obviously, they've been helped by the cost cap. We know they're not the most cash-rich team, but even with the cost cap, they actually haven't been able to reach it. So this $20 million a season is actually for the first time going to allow Haas to spend as much as everybody else and reach the cost cap in terms of the amount that they spend on development and all the other facets that go into what makes up the total spend in terms of the cost cap. So that is awesome for Haas. And to be fair, if you think about, they haven't done terribly. We know they took a year off, essentially, to design this year's car, and it definitely has helped. They have been competitive, depending on the track. They certainly haven't been right at the back, like we saw with Schumacher and Mazepin. So it has been a success to that extent. And obviously the money they saved by not developing obviously went into this year. But what we're saying now is they can actually go into every year and they're going to be able to reach the cost cap because of the money put in from MoneyGram. That $20 million is going to make such a huge difference to them going into each season, which I think is great news. We want all teams to be competitive, more competitive, trying to find their way up the grid in Formula One, because of course that leads to better competition and all the teams coming closer together. That means closer fighting, closer racing, and that's what we all want to see. So hopefully this all pays out the way that Haas are hoping. And we see that as being more of a success, and we see better racing on the track because of it. But on top of that, there are now rumours that, of course, we know, we've talked about it already on the channel, that Alfa Romeo are going to be parting ways with Sauber. Of course, we know Sauber are going to be joining forces with Audi in the future. But next season is going to be the last season of Alfa Romeo Sauber. So after that, there are now rumours we're going to see Alfa Romeo Haas, and that they could join forces with Haas from 2024. Now, it is only rumour at the moment. There is nothing concrete to say that this will take place. However, I do think this could be a really interesting partnership. And on the face of it, it does make a lot of sense. You could go really superficial and you could talk about the colour schemes of the cars. They do match up, and that's fine. And I think the car could look really nice. To be fair, I think that the Alfa Romeo this season is probably one of the best looking cars on the grid in terms of the livery, at least in my opinion. Let me know your favourite liveries in the comments below. But I think Haas and Alfa Romeo joining forces could be good. We know, of course, Alfa Romeo, not just in Formula One, but in general, are powered by Ferrari power units. And we know that Haas have been powered by Ferrari power units since they joined the F1 grid. So certainly there is a really easy sort of join there where Alfa Romeo could just come in. They all know, of course, MoneyGram have come in. They're going to make Haas more competitive, and that could be appealing to the Alfa Romeo brand to go and get involved with Haas. Now, my only thing would be, as Haas as an American team joining with an Italian brand, will that work? Is that something that Alfa Romeo would be interested in? We will see. I think that's something for them to have conversations about. But for me, I'd like to see Alfa Romeo stay on the grid. As I say, I think their liveries are one of the nicest on the grid, so I'd like to see that stay. I like the brand of Alfa Romeo. I love Haas and Günther Steiner. I think we know that, they are, especially Günther Steiner, he is the personality of Drive to Survive. So we definitely want to see him and Haas stay on the grid. And if Alfa Romeo joining forces with them, along with this new title sponsors, are a way of, keeping them involved, keeping them competitive, and maybe see them push up in F1, fantastic. Bring it on. I'd love to see what they could do as a partnership. But certainly I think something that is exciting that we could look forward to. And finally then, the main story, the thumbnail, Red Bull and Norris, the dream team for Red Bull, for Christian Horner to have Max Verstappen and Lando Norris in the same team. So the question is, would this be the dream team? Would this be something that Norris, that would work for him? Is this something Verstappen would want with someone who was thought of so highly? From my perspective, and I know, this is an opinion, some of you may agree or disagree, but for me, on pure talent, I'm ignoring Lewis because he's Lewis, right? I'm talking about the next generation, the drivers coming through that are going to be there for the next 10, 15 years. For me, Norris is second only to Verstappen. I put him on pure talent. From what I've seen, I put him ahead of Leclerc. I put him ahead of Sainz. Whoever you want to talk about, for me, Norris is the closest there is to Verstappen in terms of pure talent. And so for them to become a partnership is a really interesting topic, because for me, I think for Verstappen's perspective, maybe he wouldn't want that. Maybe he'd want the Bottas-esque relationship that Lewis had for those years where they were really good. And we've seen, of course, with Bottas this season with Alfa, and previous years with Williams before he went to Mercedes, there was a reason why they wanted him. He was a really, really good driver, but not quite to the level of Lewis. But I think Norris is close. I think he really is close to Verstappen. And yes, I worry that would Red Bull give Norris the support that Verstappen gets? Maybe not. Maybe that, but I'm not trying to put Verstappen down by saying that. He's earned the support and the push that Red Bull give him by being so good. But I worry now, we've seen it with our drivers, we saw it with Gasly, we saw it with Albon, we're seeing it with Perez. It's so difficult to come in and be Verstappen's teammate, the same way it was for so many other drivers to come in and be Lewis's teammate. And from Verstappen's point of view, maybe he wouldn't want that competition. Maybe he'd see it and go, yeah, I get it from the team's perspective, because you're kind of trying to guarantee constructors' championships. And I think from Red Bull's point of view, the points haul from Norris and Verstappen, if the car is as good as it is now, would be awesome. They would be an absolute team to fear. Those two drivers, for me, it would be an exciting prospect, right? But look at it from the driver's point of view. Verstappen would be going, might be a bit close to me. I don't really want that. I want that clear divide between number one and number two driver. And I think Norris is one of the guys that actually could really push me. Maybe he'll look at it as a competitor and go, bring it on, right? Bring it on. And I hope that Verstappen's the kind of guy that would go, bring it on. I can beat anyone. I don't care who my teammate is. I know I'm going to beat them. Maybe. And we'll see. But he may also go, no. Actually, I'd rather have a Perez, I'd rather have a Gasly, I'd rather have someone who I feel is in my pocket, going to keep him down there. They're not the guy that's going to come in and beat me. So that could be the way he thinks about it. From Norris's perspective, he potentially, I've talked about it again on the channel already about what McLaren need to do to keep him. And McLaren do need to keep him. There are no other talents out there that he's going to be able to come in and just be as good as Lando Norris. I rate him that highly. So they do need to hang on to him. And we've heard from Zach Brown what they're doing at McLaren. And their expectation at McLaren is they're going to be able to challenge for the title in 2025. So to hang on to him, that needs to come true. Because as far as I'm concerned, he's being loyal. He's given them additional contracts. He's staying with McLaren. He's listening to their long-term plan. But that long-term plan has to come to fruition in 2025. And that doesn't mean they have to win the championship, but it means they have to prove that with their new wind tunnel, their new infrastructure, their new budget, they've come out and said they have the same ability now to produce cars as the top teams, as Red Bull, Mercedes, Ferrari. They've said that. So they now need to own it, and they need to give Norris a championship challenging car. And that happens in 2025. That's the first car where they're going to have the full input of all those new investments that McLaren have made over the last few years. And if they don't, I see Norris making that decision and moving on, because as loyal as he is too good to stay in a midfield team for the next few years. So would Red Bull be a good move for Norris? I think there's two answers to this. Yes, because arguably, obviously we need to wait and see what Red Bull are doing at the time. But it looks like they're going to be at least near the front, if not at the front, for the next couple of years. So he would have the opportunity to go to a proven championship winning team, which I think would be huge for Norris. But he'd also have to factor in that unless Verstappen does something crazy and goes, you know what, actually I've always dreamed for Ferrari, and he ends up making a move that we don't see coming, he'd have Verstappen as a teammate, and that is a hard task to overcome, right? So do I think he can go in and do it? Yeah, but at best it's 50-50. That I'm not in any way saying that Norris is going to go in there and be able to beat Verstappen, because Verstappen has proven how difficult it is for teammates to come in and do that. I certainly think he'd probably give it the best go of all the people that Verstappen's been teammate with so far. So that, again, would be really interesting as a fan watching on to see. But for me, if you're Norris, you come to that stage, I think what you really need is an opportunity to go in and step in as the number one at a team where someone's gone. So, let's say Lewis left Mercedes. Could he go in as a number one there? Or if Verstappen did make that move and go, I'm off to Ferrari, could he sneak in and become the number one driver at Red Bull in that stage, in 2026, something like that, if something crazy happened? That for me would be maybe a better situation for Norris if he has true aspirations of being a multiple time world champion. But would I want to see the challenge? Would I want to see Norris and Verstappen go at it in equal machinery at Red Bull? 100%. 100%. I want to see that happen. As I say, the way that the drivers look at it and the team looks at it from Red Bull's perspective, why wouldn't you want this, right? You've two of the best drivers on the grid, without a doubt, in your team, guaranteeing you points, guaranteeing you, if you give them the car, championships. Red Bull absolutely are going to want it. Verstappen, would he want it? As I said, 50-50. It depends which way he looks at it, and the same for Norris. He can look at it as an opportunity. He can look at it as I believe in myself. I am the best driver. Put me in that Red Bull and I'll prove it. He could look at it that way, or he could go, I think Red Bull are going to favour Verstappen. I think that he's going to get the better strategies. I think he's going to be given the better opportunities to go and win because he is their world champion. He's earned that right, and it's not a negative. So then maybe he looks for a different opportunity where he can go in and be a number one driver at a different team, and he bides his time because he's not leaving F1 for a long time to come, and he has a guaranteed, I think, seat for life at McLaren unless something happens, goes really wrong. I think he's guaranteed in the sport for a long, long time to come. So he could bide his time. But, we've seen with drivers like Ricciardo that it can get away from you. And when that opportunity comes, and if it is the second seat at Red Bull, I think he needs to take it because I think he's too good, as I said, to stay in the midfield team. So unless McLaren deliver the car, as much as I want to see Norris stay at McLaren and be successful with McLaren, I do think he needs to leave and take that opportunity if it comes and if McLaren can't deliver. But that's my opinion. Let me know in the comments below if that's a team that, a matchup you want to see. Do you want to see Norris and Verstappen in the same team? Do you think Verstappen would want to see it? Do you think Norris would want to do it? Do you think McLaren are going to give him a championship challenging car? Are they going to deliver on their word and come 2025 be able to challenge those at the front? All of your thoughts, let me know in the comments below. If you are new around here, make sure to subscribe on the bottom right hand side. Make sure to get involved in the community. And make sure you hit that bell icon to be notified of all future uploads. We have multiple uploads every week, so make sure to get involved. Otherwise, I'm just going to thank you so much for watching today. Hope you have a great day. Goodbye.